Sunderland from Health Coaching by Heather. I'm on Zoom streaming live onto Facebook with Andrew Melrose. Right now it's telling me we're not live yet, but I have a feeling we are. Okay, now we are live. So let me introduce Andrew to you. Andrew is a colleague of mine. He's an indoor environmental professional. I've watched his practice just sort of explode in the past year. He is the founder of Melrose Mold Solutions. He does on-site environmental assessments across the US. He's been to a lot of states this year, and he holds multiple certifications. I'm going to let him share what he wants to share about that. But we are going to dive into mold inspections and testing remediation and some do's and don'ts. And at the end, there will be time for Q&A that I will be looking at my phone and seeing what questions you're writing in. So if you have questions as he's sharing, please write them in the comments on my page where this is live. And Andrew, I'm so excited to have you here and have you share your expertise with this audience.
Thank you. Thank you for the invite.
You are very welcome. So where do you want to get us started, or do you want to share sort of why you got into this, why you got into mold inspections? And I'm sort of curious. I think it's nice to know if you have a story around mold that sort of brought you here.
Definitely had a story around not so good health growing up. And then when I had a radical life change at age 20, God got a hold of my life completely. I started to really get into bodily health as well as spiritual health, and saw that from spirit, soul, body, mental, emotional, all of it is just the full being, that I really was fascinated with and care about. And that's kind of the life mission. Well, then like 3-4 years into that, the environmental health side started to show up, and I started doing a few jobs with someone when I realized it was a health procedure more than just a building procedure. That's where the passion really hit, is it's really helping someone's health, and mold is impacting people financially, relationally, all these different areas. So it was really taking care of the person, the family, and the industry knowledge is fascinating in itself, from mycology to building science to how homes are. Just there's so much in it. So the passion was rising in with that. And as I realized, yes, I did deal with mold growing up. That's why my immune system was shot. There's tests to prove it now. So it wasn't one of those obvious stories that mold hit me, it took me out for a few years, and now I'm, arising like a phoenix to help the next people. That's people like yourself and many others who do great work in this industry. It was knowing it was mold. Maybe they got blindsided by it, but now it's helping the next people so they don't get blindsided by it. And that's what I hope today on all the free education I give is, let's just save people the stress and the money and the confusion that we can for free, with which we really can, with the basic knowledge around mold, moisture, how it happens, what not to do with hiring an inspector, what not to do in remediation, and all of that. But as time went on and doing more and more of the assessments and being passionate about the health side, also was one of those things where a lot of things made sense health-wise for me and also for my wife and what she had gone through as well. So it was kind of a realization of why we were so passionate about health and improving that, and some of the struggles we had. So many more stories I could get into, but yeah, that's a basic one. Now it's been 7.5 years almost, and hundreds of on-site assessments and hundreds more of virtual consults around the country. So just getting the reps in of all the different people and situations, it's really fascinating. Just like every person's body is different, every home is extremely unique as well.
I love what you guys do. I'm glad I'm on the body side, not the home side. I know enough to be dangerous, but I do not have the background that you have. So that's why it's so nice to bring somebody who's so knowledgeable on to share, so people aren't hearing it from a health coach, but they're hearing it from somebody what's the difference between a mold assessor and a mold inspector? Is there a difference in title?
Not really. So even the indoor environmental professional that I like to go by, it's a very umbrella term. It's like saying Heather is a health practitioner, health professional. It's just a big umbrella term, and you can have a myriad of different specialties within it. So an indoor environmental professional, you have to kind of hone in on what you've learned. And I'll just, give you a little secret of the industry. You can go get a quick 1 to 2 day, certified mold inspector course, and you can be on your way and just start your business. So with that, you're going to learn some basics, but it's really the doing that gives you all the knowledge, and it's all the nuances of tools and the how to and all the different dynamics. So, I do have a lot of certifications. I've never stopped learning since day one because I really knew that if I go into someone's house and leave giving them kind of halfway or limited info, it just would not be good on my conscience. It's too serious of a of an industry. Um, so the certifications have been great, of course, but getting in masterminds with people way smarter than me, getting around those who just are doing things in adjacent industries that further my knowledge as a real, IEP who can see all the different dynamics of the home, getting the certifications around inspection and remediation. So I really see the full picture on that. There's so much more that just the learning and the doing has given beyond just the letters next to the name. You know that.
Yeah, no, the doing makes a big deal of difference on our insight with the home or the body.
Yeah.
So do you want to dive into a little bit of what you wanted to share? And hopefully I can, if I have questions, I can throw some questions at you for the audience.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we really can just have a conversation as well. I already have very long answers so far, but if you want to jump in at any point and we can just dialogue about whatever, let's do it. If you want to jump in and say, tell me more about that thing you mentioned or whatever, please do. And then field in the questions. I look forward to answering those. But I think if I could encapsulate or summarize the most important things, if I was given a short period of time to talk for people, I think it can hopefully build a frame around this topic that's not as confusing because there's so much online and so much it impacted this person this way, or this test result showed this, or this home was in this condition. There's really a lot of different variables in this equation. So if we touch quickly on mold itself and mycology, mold is in the fungi kingdom. It's not a plant or an animal, but it behaves like both in a lot of ways and looks like both. So in more of a plant, it's spores in seed form, blowing around outside all the time. Some places higher than others, but those spores, when they get inoculated, or they will get inoculated when they get watered, just like a plant or a seed. So if you control moisture, you'll control mold growth, not necessarily what's floating around outside coming in, but you just lower the dust content in the home, and that's a way to handle that. So when people say mold is everywhere, I would agree with the fact that it is. I mean, every test will show up something. Mold everywhere turning into growth indoors is not the same thing at all. That's called condition 3 growth. And that's what an IEP or inspector, assessor, all the inspector, assessor, same thing, really is there to do is let's see, are there sources, are there production areas of condition 3 first that would have been formed from liquid water embedding itself into the material and having growth on those materials. And then we'll quickly talk about materials. And then if condition 3 is, checked off around actual water sources, then we're kind of getting an idea of just overall environmental factors of humidity levels and dust content and how the home is designed and just so many different things that play into overall, air quality and environmental health. Um, when I mentioned materials and mentioned water, I'll make this very simple as well. Where does water come from? The sky, the groundwater, any place on the outside. This bulk water is number one place to look for first. Okay, where is the water from the sky going to go? It's going to move down this part of the roof and slam into the chimney, and maybe that could leak because it's of this type of shape. Maybe it's been sitting in the corner of our home after rainstorms and just pools there for a long time and it's seeping in the basement, stuff like that. Then you're looking for bulk water or liquid water inside, which is pipes and showers and all the indoor liquid water that we deal with. But where it gets into more environmental factors and what I would call not necessarily like an acute event, but more of a climate situation, is if we have high dew points, high humidity, and not as good airflow that kind of gets pockets of stagnant air or places where condensation and sweating can happen. And it kind of turns that invisible water into visible water. And this can happen where hot and cold meet, hot humid air slaps against a cold surface and starts sweating. This is what we also need to be looking for and understanding the climate we're in and how that moisture and temperature move throughout a home. So when dealing with moisture, those are the categories: outdoor water, indoor liquid water, and then the invisible water that can show up and inoculate stuff.
Can I ask you a question that I don't
Yeah.
know if other people have, but I'm wondering, do you know if there's a percentage how often new builds, how often there's building material mold when a home is actually built just from building material either being framed and rained on or building material already being contaminated? Are there any numbers on that or?
That's a great question. There is not numbers on that. I mean, there will, I always tell people if every single one of your surface samples, for instance, on wood comes back with absolute zero of mold spores, like every single time, I'd be more suspicious of the lab than I would with the sample. Like there's gonna be a
Mm.
spore or two or a
Right.
handful on any surface at any time. But yeah, on a framing inspection, it's very important to understand how waterlogged is this lumber. Because if it's waterlogged and not even moldy yet, but you build right on top of it, it's gonna just pretty much grow right when you build on top of it. So dryness as much as possible. But then a lot of the lumber does come already kind of growing something or already did and now it's dried and still brittle. So that framing assessments are very, very important. I don't know have a percentage, but fairly high. If there's a couple boards during the framing process that you can identify and get, cleaned off, sanded off, then you're in pretty good shape. I've been at some where 80% of the framing is covered, and that's a project. I don't know what to do about that.
Yeah, I remember being in Dallas and it like was really humid and 24 hours of rain in these beautiful neighborhoods where these new homes were being framed and just torrential downpour. And I just thought, oh my gosh, yeah, thought, oh my gosh, the poor people who move into this house, like there's no way. I
Mhm.
don't know how you deal with that when the climate's humid and you've got a lot of rain and they're framing. I-
It is tough. And really, I mean, if you look outside in nature, we're not seeing the whole world's not covered in black mold, which is pretty cool. Like there's such a balance, right? So it really is the amount of water, the amount of
Mhm.
time that water is there, the drying time, that these are kind of what categorize like it's a bigger problem. So darker, damp, longer term, it's going to be worse almost every time versus like maybe the peak of that, those framing pieces of lumber are also getting pretty heavy duty sun the next day, hopefully to dry it out enough. So I mean, you still need a proper assessment of that framing, I would say, before building over it. But yeah, tough to say. It's just very climate dependent.
Yeah.
Mhm. So yeah, moisture is one, and then now we're mixing moisture with the material it's on. So if mold's like a seed or it's about to plant itself, we are now not able to plant a plant in metal, correct? It's a non-porous. There's no place for the root to go in, but very easy in nice soft soil outside. And soft soil would be a porous material like carpets and other clothing and things. If it gets damp enough, it's just enough water into the building material. And drywall is made of paper. It's just add some water and it's going to start doing its thing. So when dealing with what's called that condition 3 growth into the material, if it's in a porous item, it really can't be effectively cleaned and saved. You're gonna maybe clean the top layer off and it's still kind of in there. It's done its rooting, which is called hyphae, into the material. So basically visible growth, porous material, gone. The next layer back, now we're talking kind of mold removal, which is mold remediation. Mold will grow upon more of like a semi-porous material like wood, like we just talked about. Does all wood have to be completely taken out every single time? Not necessarily. If it was just humidity based on the surface and the roots go in maybe a 32nd of an inch or a 16th of an inch potentially, then that can be abrasively sanded, scrubbed. I mean, there's methods on all this that and protocols that have to be put in place, but doable to clean and save the wood if everything's clean and dry at the end. Uh, and then when it does come to metal or things like that on vents, it's usually just kind of on the dust or the oils on top of it. So it's more on, not in that surface. And then you can clean that off. So the final form is dust. So once you're doing all that cleaning or removing, like I just talked about, you're creating dust
Mhm.
and debris and all that stuff is cross-contaminating. So we got to make sure that that entire work area is dust-free. And that's like picking up the leaves that fell off of those little mold forests. So
I'm curious, I had a water leak back in November and I knew, and I want to hear what you have to say. I'm in my head, it was like 24 to 48 hours. We've got to deal with this leak or we're going to have mold growth. And we were very fortunate that the insurance company, who I thought would do it wrong because of all my experience with patients, they
yeah,
were out at my house 2 hours right after the leak started and
amazing.
they contained the area before they even cut open the wall because they didn't believe me that the leak had just happened. They weren't sure. And it was a
Awesome.
really heavy containment. I was just like, I was so excited, to see how they were doing things. And there was no mold growth because it had only been wet for about 2 hours. As soon as I turned on the water, a pipe had failed. So it was just very interesting. But what would you tell people if they have a leak? How quickly should they act? Is that the right time frame that really you want to be acting within 24 to 48 hours?
Great question, and you got a good one, Heather. That's awesome. I love to hear that it worked out for you that way.
Very
Because
unusual, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Some insurance companies, yeah, they and their preferred vendor get out there like ASAP, and it's really on the homeowner to try to get them out there ASAP. It is more rare, if I'm just being honest. The preferred vendor, you kind of want your own vendor, and then maybe have
Mhm.
insurance help you later. Real quick on that, if it's an event-driven water loss situation, yes, get on top of it ASAP, but that's not specifically a mold remediation protocol. That's called a water damage restoration, which is the IICRC S500 protocols, which I have certifications in. But if you can get to it, get it removed, dried, handled properly,
Right,
then you've just dodged it. So things change when the mold has already been,
right.
formed, grows, and all that. It switches to mold remediation protocols. S520, IICRC S520, where you have to do containments and get a little more things like dialed in there. So there are two different things. I have YouTube videos on that, like in that initial event driven situation. But yes, ideally within 24 hours is ideal. It really can grow pretty quick, bacteria even faster. So just want to be on top of that. It does depend on material, how long that moisture, like I said, is sitting there, how trapped is it, and all of that. But follow the path of the water, find its map, and really don't, stop before you're really sure that you're clean and dry.
And what's the acceptable level of moisture in wood? Like, when they're
Mhm.
doing moisture meters on wood, isn't there some level of moisture?
Yes. Yeah. Good question. Where mold is more, what's considered more like saturated to ready to grow is 20% moisture and above. You really want to be between like 12 and 15 or below. Like that's kind of your upper. Up sometimes it will get, 16, 18%. It does depend on the moisture meter as well. So as much as you want to like find a number, numbers are important, but every moisture meter now is a little bit different. So you got to be on a wood setting, and then you got to do a comparative reading. So comparative reading, without getting too detailed, is you find a known dry piece of wood. I'm 100% sure this is dry. And if it's sitting at 5%, that's your
Okay,
zero, right? And then now it's like,
okay.
okay, so you got to work with the reader itself and let that guide you. But moisture content with the pin reader into the wood, kind of the 12 to 15% is where you're looking for, but upwards of like closer to 20, you're getting a bit wet. You got to dry that.
Because when we had our leak, I remember the company that came out from the insurance, I didn't look at their moisture meter or how they were doing it. I should have. And it was 100% when it was wet, and they said they were getting it down to 40%. But I didn't
That's a
ask
mhm. Well,
questions.
that's a very good improvement. If you're getting it that
Yeah,
dry that quick, that's exactly what trending that way. I just am curious which reader they were using, because if it's
yeah,
40% moisture content, that's still pretty darn wet. If it's the more comparative reading, then that actually might be decent. So
yeah. I don't know.
yeah.
They closed it up, and we don't have an issue. But
Yeah.
yeah, then I heard somebody say a much lower number, and I sort of mentally went, "Oh my gosh!" But yeah, we don't. There's not an issue there, so that's the good news. But I wanted
Yeah.
to ask that.
Yeah, that is good. It maybe was the reader. That's why it's so hard to just give these numbers. Even like people, say you have to be at 55% humidity or lower. Dew point is a more important reading than just humidity alone. So yeah.
Well, for those of us in the desert, I mean, I'm in Arizona in the low desert, so our humidity, it depends on the day, but we can be 11%.
Yeah.
And I've heard people say there's an issue even in the desert with the swings in temperature, that you can have condensation from the swings in temperature,
Hmm.
which sort of surprised me because another inspector told me Arizona was like top 5 for mold. And I was like, really? Just very surprising. We run outside. We're so excited when there's rain, and it doesn't rain for
Hmm.
long
Right.
typically.
Right.
So is there an issue with too dry in a
Ye-
home?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. You don't really want to be inside. You don't want to be consistently under 25 to 30%, like really 25% humidity. There's more proliferation of viruses and a handful of other different things. There really is an optimal range between 30 and 55 or so that is good for
Perfect.
humidity
Help
content. Yeah.
the health of the home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good to know. Good
Yeah.
to know. I'm hot at 30% humidity now after living in the desert.
I
Like we're
bet you're
all
used
like,
to it. Yeah.
we're used to it being really, really low.
Hmm.
Um, so you talked about mold. Any red flags
I
you want to give for
mhm.
people who are coming in to inspect a home?
Yes. Yeah, right before I do that, the mycology is important too. When I said longer term water damage, maybe we'll if there's a soaking wet drywall, soaking wet wood, it's usually going to turn to more toxigenic or pathogenic mold types versus when some people really freak out that there's two or three spots on a piece of a windowsill that's metal that's or you're the little at the end of the vent. It might be a sign or a symptom to go deeper and look deeper, but that's usually not the most toxigenic type. Knowing basic mycology of of how these different molds, allergenic ones versus more toxigenic ones, behave is very important as well. So there's not all mold is the exact same. We don't want growth in the house, but types, amounts, and severity is really an important piece of this.
A lot of people who ask me, oh, I had a pet that pees, or I have a kid who has
Hmm.
peed on the floor. Like, how much of that is an issue? Do you ever see that a child or an
Hmm.
animal urinating is causing mold growth?
It depends how quick it's dried, but it definitely, if it's trapped there and wet enough, long enough, and there were spores on that surface, then it could totally grow. But again, it just depends on how long that moisture is there and how um, how long was it at that saturated point to then grow. Yeah. So on to inspections. I have only learned more and applied more the longer I've been in this industry. So my inspections take a little longer, but also accomplish a lot more because of the more that the trained eye is seeing patterns and recognizing the building science stuff with the design of the home and how it was kept. Like what's most important from your inspector is to have them understand the entire home as an interconnected system and your health concerns. If they understand the health impact, they're probably going to take their job a little more seriously. They're probably going to be a little more thorough, and you got to feel good about them intuitively and their character and work ethic and all that. I said that one of the important characteristics of an inspector is curiosity because there's been so many times where I'm finishing up with an area, but that extra little curiosity and I find something there is like, wow, that's very interesting. So the inspection should take multiple hours and have a lot of different tools from readers to thermal imaging cameras that shows temperature differentials and air infiltration, hot and cold spots, missing insulation, as well as a particle counter can be helpful just to see what's floating in the air in real time. You can also see, mine has formaldehyde reading in real time as well, and just different things in the air. And then temperature and humidity and dew point is something else to pay attention to. It's good for on site, but it's better over a trend. So monitor yourself is also very good as a homeowner. We're also looking for, yes, obvious places, like I said, where water has actually happened. But then even looking for like heavy dust content. Dust is the smallest the eye can see, but when you have high dust content, it's not going to be good for air quality overall. And it's one of the places that humidity itself can just kind of cause the dust to get some growth on it. And so the inspector really should be able to take their time going room to room, attic to crawl space, attic to basement, HVAC systems, like really as much accessible space as possible, really should be checked. A bright flashlight has shown me more issues than any of the fancy tools. So you homeowners can get a bright flashlight, a moisture meter, and a borescope camera that can attach to your phone, which is like a little snake camera that can fit behind places. You can get all that stuff for about 110 bucks total and just spend a few hours methodically going through your house knowing what to look for and how to look. And you're really looking for water damage, discoloration, swelling of material. This doesn't look like new building material. Why? Look deeper. How close is this to toilets and sinks and places where water is? A lot of it's just common, common sense to follow moisture.
Do you ever, because I just had a client in Texas, really surprised. They had an inspector come in, and they have mold toxicity, and the house was, there was just a lot of issues with water damage throughout the
Mm.
house. So I don't know if it was building material because it was a brand new build.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and
Yeah.
I'm just wondering when you're in a new build, because
Hmm.
I know when we had inspectors come in, if they were here an hour, right, moisture meters were picking up nothing. Thermal cameras were picking up nothing.
Hmm.
ERMI and air mycotoxin test did pick up
Hmm.
stuff. Do you spend less time in a new build, or does it just depend on the home, the size of the home, and what you're visually seeing?
Hmm. That's a great question. I don't trust that just because everything looks brand new that I don't need to spend as much time there. I think I do want to see what is behind the wall cavities really looking like. So I'll take that borescope camera and check, and then you got to take again the whole house as a system. So a new build can have problems very early on. If, for instance, you're in that Texas climate, let's just hit that real quick. If the attic ventilation is not so good, and you're not air sealed on the attic floor that connects to the house, and your HVAC system is up there, you got a trifecta of a lot of temperature differentials, high dew points, and moisture, humidity, dust, all the stuff up there to funnel into the home. When you're cooling the home, you're going to get a little bit more of that attic air into the house based on a lot of different things with pressure differentials and how the HVAC system is sized and designed and all these different things that is more um, uncontrolled, unfiltered air that can make its way into the home. So it might not be an obvious black mold, gooey situation at a leak, but if you're drawing a lot of that attic air into the house and the HVAC system's got its problems, some of the building materials were already built that way. New builds can have a handful of those issues just right off the bat based on design strategy and installation of certain things. So, and if that's happening and condensation's happening, that condensation can happen fairly quickly if the temperature and humidity is right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I'm on the body side, not the building side. I keep saying, because the more I learn on the building side, it's you guys really have to play detective and have
Oh yeah.
a lot of knowledge playing detective in the house when you know somebody's symptomatic and ruling out, what's going on.
Yeah, and no one person can do it all. It really this industry had gotten heavy for me at times, feeling either alone, overwhelmed, like these houses are big and complex and there's I mean no IEP. I'm just telling everybody just to set the expectations properly. No IEP, okay, maybe there's like 5 to 10, has full on, mechanical engineering, HVAC, full knowledge there as a specialist, full ventilation strategy and insulation and building and all these different things like those with plumbing, with electrical, with all the different aspects in a home. There's so many, it's all different specialists, right? So you as an inspector should really know what your goal is, what your specialty is, and then have an eye to see the other specialists that might need to be involved, and then kind of direct or quarterback that if needed. That's what I would propose to inspectors, is to like not be so niche that you have a blind eye to everything else. You work on people with the body. If something's going on with someone's eyes, like you probably are going to want to get them to an eye doctor, though you know the signs, right? And so it's knowing how to work in collaboration, because a home is an interconnected, multi system, building as well. So yeah, there's a lot to it, but you're exactly right. Investigation, detective measures, like that's why we dedicate a good portion of a day, be as thorough as we can. And if there is something outside of our scope, then we get the right professional in there to answer those questions.
Is it a red flag if somebody's coming into a 2,000 square foot home and they're there 45 minutes an
A hundred
hour? Is
percent,
that
a
is
hundred
that a red
percent,
flag?
100%. I could get a lot done in that first hour, like, but that's not a full inspection. It's just not. I tell people if I'm going to do this really top to bottom all the way around, like let's do it right. And budget doesn't always allow for that, but that's why sometimes the virtual consults or something to at least get us going the right direction. What I don't want people to do is waste 5, 6, $700 on that 45-minute assessment where they are barely in, they barely really dug into anything. They set up an air sample in the biggest, rooms of the house. I mean, some inspectors are taught we take one air sample per 1,000 square feet. So now that 2,000 square foot house, you do one downstairs, one upstairs in the center of the biggest room. Like you're just truly not going to find any root cause. I mean, even if the counts are high in the middle of the room, what are you going to recommend? If the
Right.
counts are low, you're saying there's no problem. So there's just two. I'm just starting to talk about testing. We're like 20 minutes in. That's why to me, testing is extremely secondary. It's in response to the inspection. It's in conjunction with it as another tool. But again, everyone wants a number or a specific something with a test first. And I love testing in the whole puzzle, but not by
Right.
itself. And so the whole,
It's a
and
data,
yeah, it's
it's a
just a
data
data
point.
point. That's exactly
But
it.
a lot of my patients, right, they do an ERMI, they do an EMA. They start with a test because they don't see visible mold,
Hmm.
or they test their body, then they test their home.
Hmm.
And that's information, but then they need to hire an
Yeah.
inspector to
Yeah.
come in and investigate further, do more testing, find the
Hmm.
source
If
or
someone's
sources.
budget, yeah, if someone's budget allows to drop 300 on some dust, then by all means do it. But if you're going to do 300, why not get those tools and invest 3 to 4 hours of learning time and walk around time to get an idea? And I'll just tell you right off the top, the hit list. If your attic is like old, nasty insulation, low insulation points, you know, high dew points up there and funky stuff up there, we already are potentially having a problem. If you live on top of a crawl space that is dark, damp, we're never down there, and musty smell down there. We already are living now in between two places that are connected to the home. Our HVAC system has been serviced in a while. It's 15 years old. It's also got a funky smell, and our house gets really dusty. That right there, those three things tell me
Yeah,
more than even your dust test. Like, to me, the dust test is only going to tell you should probably get inspected. But I would say if you have those three situations at minimum, and the shower grout lines are cracking, and this, that, and the symptoms, we're feeling better out of the house versus in, I already know you need inspection before the dust sample
right,
that tells you that. That's all I'll say. It's just an allocation of resources and when. That's all. If you want to do, EMA and get that, then sure. But my recommendation is always, you probably should find the sources of where that dust came from. So
right,
yeah,
right,
that's
right,
all.
right. No, it's good. I'm gonna throw a question at you. Would there be like three red flags when you're talking to inspectors, like to
Okay.
avoid that inspector?
Yeah, time is the first one. So we hit on that one. This is a good question. Um, Gosh, time is the biggest one. And then kind of just have the health discussion. If they're not going down that health road with you to be like, no, we understand this, like the, child symptoms, we've worked with health professionals who send us out. We do understand the home and air quality overall. Like, if you're having a discussion with an inspector around that, what they're doing is more of a health leaning procedure than a building procedure, now you're probably already in better hands. That's
Right,
just one of
right,
them. It might not be exact phrasing. It's everyone's different on how they talk it. Some guys really are scared to go outside of their scope and talk health with you, but um, it's just a lens of how they see their job, right? So it's like the dentist who can, clean your teeth quick and throw some fluoride in your mouth and all this stuff versus like kind of, the teeth are holding meridians and very oral health is important. Like, there's a different way of
right,
looking
right.
at their job, correct? Um, yeah, not aesthetic, but health. So I think that's the other aspect, and just having those conversations. And then maybe, do you write protocols for remediation that are going to be really specific with the IICRCS 520 standards, and for maybe more environmentally sensitive people, and just being really on top of knowing the remediation steps. There's nothing worse than getting a inspection that is like, yes, mold was found here and should be remediated, like as vague as that. Like, that's not enough. Or should be remediated, and now they throw a bunch of random chemicals. The whole house should be fogged with this. They have their affiliate link. It's just, there's a lot of stuff there that you need to kind of like. I got my remediation certification very early on, like within the first weeks of getting started in this industry, and it put the lens of what the job's going to actually look like, because we solve the problem, not just find the problem, but solve it. So my eye is already like, I already picture the entire remediation, what it should be when I know there's a problem in a certain area. So then, clearance assessment, once the remediation's done, what's that supposed to look like? If they have a good understanding of remediation done the right way, and not, just killing and treating and chemical treatment, but really
Right,
proper standards, I think that's also important for the inspector. I mean, there's a lot more we could get into, but those are it.
right,
And I
right.
think,
Those are big.
yeah, time and
Those,
and how much of the home. If, oh, my inspector didn't go in the attic, didn't go in the crawl space. Well,
right,
please, if they're injured, then just, that we'll give them a pass. But any other reason, it should be a whole house thing. Yeah.
right, right. Well, and I've seen so many patients where really high ERMIs, an inspector comes in, they're there for an hour in a very large house, don't find anything, air tests are negative, and they tell the person, hey, we're going to remediate with fogging.
Hmm.
And I'm just
Remediate
like,
what? Yeah.
to me, that's just a red flag. Like, you might
Of
bring down the
course.
mycotoxin load temporarily, but if you don't get rid of the source, you've still got mold creating mycotoxins.
That's right.
And then I verify with the body that the patient wasn't getting better. We did blood work to show they were still being exposed.
Mm.
And then they repeated some testing and saw the house was no better. But you
Oh,
got to
it's tough.
find the source. But I see it all the time where people are saying, hey, just bug. And that to
Yeah.
me is a red flag.
100% is. I'll just say about fogging. it's it could be used as a step in the process towards the end of a contained remediation, in my opinion. But it's like a little microscopic rainstorm. So when you have pollen floating around the air and you see a rainstorm come, and the next day the pollen's stuck on the ground, that's
Mhm.
nature fogging. It's knocking the stuff out of the air that's floating around. And so fogging will knock things out of the air and add humidity. But it'll just drop it to the surface. So you've got to then clean that effectively. But to do that alone, you're right, doesn't solve a thing because the pollen came from trees.
Right.
So if you're trying to solve the mold trees growth that is in the house, you've got to identify those, and then yes, clean up the pollen left behind. So
Yeah.
that's an analogy there.
So was it the last area we were going to talk about was do's and don'ts with remediation? Was that what was on the list?
That's a good segue. I mentioned the steps earlier, but the key thing is remediation means removal. Okay, removal, and removal means removal and cleaning. Okay, so my easiest analogy for people, and it makes a lot of sense for them, is it's early March right now. If you still had your Christmas tree up and it was a live one, it would be that sucker would be dead and dry in the corner of the room. So if we're trying to remediate or get that tree out in March, when would you ever think we should fog it or we should get a spray solution or something? Like it would never cross our mind. We would take the tree out and then we'd clean up all the pine needles that fell behind. That is mold remediation. You find the place where the growth has happened. And this could be from liquid water or condensation points that had enough to grow. And you identify the material it's on and what needs removed versus what can be abrasively cleaned. That's removal. You're sanding it out, scrubbing it out. And then you are cleaning up all that mess that you just made in the process. This is HEPA vacuuming, damp wipe downs with microfiber towels, a dish soap and water mix. And the dish soap and water is an effective way to, as a mild detergent, to pull that stuff off the surfaces. But the liquids are not even, and chemicals are not even really needed early on if we're going to really be looking through the lens of removal, right? So
Mhm.
we're trying to remove the mold because if we kill it, it's still there. The first day of mold remediation IICRC class, he said if you had a snake in your house and you just killed the snake and left the body behind, like that does no good. And so mold's the same way. If we just go and kill it, we might piss it off. It might release its defense mechanisms. It might just die and be broken apart even more. And it's still present in the house, still breathes, still exposed. So, and also with this treating, we're neutralizing it, we're covering it, we're sealing it. It's
Yeah.
got to get removed. Clean and dry, clean and dry, clean and dry, dust free. And we even have a little clearance criteria at the end of our inspection report that says after these remediation protocols that we write very meticulously, step by step, this room needs this, this, and this with containment barriers and everything, which I can explain. Then we have clearance criteria at the bottom that says this is what we'll be checking for. The area should be dust free. This is the type of testing we'll likely be doing, and all that at the bottom. That's like confirming that the work was done according to the protocol above.
I love the pictures. I love the Christmas tree picture, because you can see picture removing the tree and the needles left behind. And so
Yes.
even with mold, you remove the source, you still have to deal with the mycotoxins and what the mold has given off behind. And I was surprised there's certain states like in the desert where they don't even always do that. I learned they don't
Hmm.
do the not the air scrub, the small particle cleaning.
Mhm.
Um, my parents have a home in Nevada and they had a water leak, and talking to the inspector out there, he said they don't typically do small particle cleaning. Um,
There's a little
but
distinction on small particle cleaning, which has been raising a lot more lately, where there's a lot to this. Okay, so if let's just pretend we got a 2,000 square foot home, it's a very basic structure, and the only findable, we searched the whole house, the only findable problem was this back corner bathroom in that room. In that, you do containment chambers, you block that off, you make sure there's no ability for that mess that you're about to make in removal to get into the house. You do what's called negative pressure and send the air out in that case that will not allow it to come back in. And you isolate and chamber off that spot. You make the mess, do the removal, clean everything abrasively, and then you get that room dust free. That is in every IICRC protocol. That is standard remediation is small particle cleaning in the area of removal and demo. Okay. What's now happening with mold sensitive and the understanding of building science and airflow and sensitivities is that, well, that bathroom was really bad. How contaminated is the rest of the house because of that bathroom? That's the biggest question. And it's not always cut and dry. It's not always as easy to know, is the worst of it, in the rooms just adjacent to that bathroom, and then by the, top corner of the other side of the house, it's really not that bad. We don't know. So what's happening is you can do additional testing if you want. You can assume the best and just HEPA vacuum and wipe down the house anyway, basically, or you can assume the worst and you can do a serious every inch of the house small particle cleaning because of one event in the corner, which I think
Right.
in that case is a little overkill,
Overdone. Hmm.
because you can spend a lot of money on that job, and how long is it really going to stay that clean? Like, how
Hmm.
really good is your filtration in your home with your HVAC system? How leaky is your attic or crawl space or basement or whatever from outside stuff coming in? And air gets dirtier on the way in. It just does. Like, you
Hmm.
can open a window and it comes in as is, but if everything's closed up and you're getting outside air infiltrating in, it gets dirtier when it passes the building materials, the insulation, the bugs, the debris, the whatever, with its humidity and particles, and finds those pathways in the home. So a small particle cleaning is important, but you're kind of always dealing with this. You're always doing particulate management in some way, and humidity management and things wherever you are. So I really recommend like being just on top of good weekly HEPA vacuuming, damp wipe downs, and getting those surfaces really clean, especially the horizontal. But if in a big mold case, a big systemic issue, high sensitivities, yes, get the small particle cleaning of the house, but it's just not always the exact same for every single person. And that's why maybe these remediators are like, well, we don't always do that. And there's companies now just to do the small particle cleaning, which is just manual labor and being very thorough. It's not,
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
Yeah, time intensive. No, that's
yes,
really good to know.
yeah.
That's really good to know.
But inside containment should be completely small particle clean, dust free. Like that's standardized protocol. Yeah.
I'm curious if I should look in the chat what kind of questions
Yeah,
we
let's go.
have. If I can find, I had my page open so I could find the live, but maybe I have to grab it. I have to grab it
Yeah.
on my computer, not on. Um, I don't see any comments yet.
Okay.
So I don't know if anybody has any questions. This is your
Yeah, let us
chance
know.
to ask. And if you put them in there, I'll tag Andrew so that he can respond. But yeah, there's no
Yeah.
questions in the chat at this time.
Yeah, I mean, and I hope this is good for those who do watch the recording, just covering a lot of different things. And there is when vetting professionals, there's kind of a left brain approach and right brain approach is what I would call it. And this is the same with a lot of things. The left brain approach is like, get the facts of their certifications and their practices and all that stuff. But right brain is like, you got to really feel good about these people and their character
Right.
and trustworthiness. Do they take their job seriously and take pride in their work? Is you got to play that, into the equation, because some people have the best marketing ever and all this stuff looks fantastic on paper and everything, and they're really just not as good. And vice versa. I've had some of the worst marketing and you can't find them anywhere, and they're the best. They do such a good job. So you really just need to like trust yourself on this process, get educated, and yeah, get the right team in place.
And I would say trust your body. I've had some patients who
Yes.
write they have a remediation and they're still super sick and there's no shifts. And in every case of the people that I've worked with, there was major issues of water damage that were missed by the original
Mm,
inspector. And I've seen some people just go through until they find the right person who really finds it at
mm.
all. And some people are just very persistent, but that's a bummer, that it's not found, the first time. But it is playing detective to find
Yeah.
those sources that are hit that you can't visibly see, that are in a wall or something.
Yeah, and it can be very tough. I mean, no one person will ever see, every square inch behind these walls. That's why sometimes mold dogs can be helpful if
Really
trained well,
helpful.
and the handlers are good to track down some that, some of our other tools just simply will not find. But you need the human element to communicate what the dog is finding and how it's interconnected with the home. It's very important to know that stuff. And I think a lot of people do get caught in the hamster wheel of finding mold, testing for mold, remediating mold, and getting caught in that hamster wheel, when really the house as a interconnected system is a really really big part of this. Like again, if you really don't know how your attic is actually performing and functioning, and your mechanicals in the house and how everything is like sealed and controlled well, like there's a lot of uncontrolled things that happen. And if we're just looking for the water event, um, and the gooey black mold and that one source, when we're not really dealing with just the overall quality of the home, how it's size and design. Like some people, they got just one room upstairs and it's covered in attached attic spaces, for instance. Like there's doors or storage units or whatever that's up against that home, and that attic air has a ton of pathways unless it's been air sealed, like right into that house. Like, why is our humidity control bad up there? And we always are getting sick up there and whatever else. It's like, well, it's literally kind of an attic space with a lot of air infiltration. So you're not going to find a very obvious mold situation. You have to know what that's doing and kind of just solve it, accordingly. So it's getting into like different topics, but it still is indoor environmental health, and
Right,
mold's
but
a huge
buildings,
component.
but more building science, right? More building
Yeah.
science
Hmm.
and
Yes,
how
and
things were built.
controlling the building envelope so that outside is out and inside is in, and
Mhm.
certain areas are not confused, because there are certain attic spaces. I was just in one 2 days ago that's just like, this attic space is confused. Is it an indoor space or an outdoor space? And if it's ventilated, it's an outdoor space. So that means every connection point to the indoor space has to be sealed like a boat. Because if not,
Mhm.
that water is going to, come on in a boat. Same thing with the home. That nasty uncontrolled air is going to be able to infiltrate in, and then there's pressure differentials that'll shift stuff around as well. So there's yeah, there's a lot more on the building science and environmental side, that over the last 3 to 4 years, learning that, and the HVAC sizing, design, and installation is a huge component. I would say 80% of my clients, when I'm doing a mold assessment, the HVAC system is a top one, two, or three priority in their house. It's hugely important.
Are there any, like for the homeowner, any tips, things that they should check, know, learn just to be preventative? Because I'm assuming most of the people who watch this live on my page, the replay, they're all people who've dealt with mold, Lyme, SIRS, chronic health issues due to water exposure.
Hmm.
Anything you'd recommend? You mentioned like having those tools, moisture meter, that they can grab those tools inexpensively. Anything else you'd
Hmm.
recommend they routinely check or just to understand? Because I can tell you, I don't think I've ever been in the attic in my home in the desert. There's no steps to go up to the attic.
Hmm.
Where I used to live, there used to be steps, so I was up there all the time. But
Nice.
it's a
Yeah.
little more involved to get up into our
Of
attic, and
course.
our ladder doesn't even reach like if you're a tall guy, you can like easily get
Yeah.
up there and look, but
Oh,
little
some are tough.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Good question. One of the first places is your HVAC system. Where is it located? It's a big component. So I think I learned the three P's from Brantley May. Maybe he learned from someone else. I don't know, but it makes a ton of sense. We're looking for particles or particulates, and then pressures and
All right,
pathways.
guys, I think
Oh,
Andrew
yeah.
froze.
Okay. Any better?
Let's see.
Are we good? Any better? Hold on. Now, okay. Now I think we're good. Yeah, that was weird. Okay. So are we good? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Okay.
can hear you.
Okay. So the three P's that I learned from Brantley May, and maybe he got from somewhere else, I don't know, but is particulates. Okay, that's the actual
I'm writing.
substance. Pressures and pathways. So when we have a
Perfect.
lot of particulates, and then we have a pathway for those to get through, and then we have a pressure that moves it through, those are like, when you have all three of those, that's what we're really after, is finding where the particle source is. And then, oh, that's why it's going to rank higher in our priority, because it has pathways and pressures to mobilize that stuff. Does that make sense? So
Yeah.
HVAC systems, if they're dirty and leaky from an air leakage standpoint, pulling in that nastier air that's not filtered or whatever it might be, if the system itself is contaminated, now it has all three P's: particles, it is a bunch of pathways, and it gets kicked on, it's pressurizing and pushing
Right.
everywhere,
Yeah.
right? So no matter where you are, the HVAC system to me is one of the first lowest hanging fruits to be checking. Get your HVAC professional to, you can get anybody to just open it up, do a diagnostic, and show you photos. That's at minimum, maybe your lowest cost one. But if they're not understanding indoor air quality, building science, and really the more mechanical engineering leaning HVAC professional, then you'll probably want to go with someone who does understand the sizing of the system. Is it sized properly? If it's oversized or
Mhm.
undersized, that'll cause problems. Is it designed properly, or are there huge imbalances? Like, where's the closest return vent? My goodness, we have big pressure problems in the house that will again mobilize this unconditioned air into different places of the home. When we go significantly negative pressure somewhere, it's positive pressure somewhere else, and vice versa. And then how's the filtration? If you have a big home or one system that's feeding the entire house and you get down to your HVAC system, you have one little 1 inch filter and a loose little filter component. That one thing is trying to handle the entire house. It's better to go with a bigger 4 inch filter if your system can handle it. So you would ask an HVAC professional, can we upgrade or retrofit a better, bigger filter into this? Don't go just put a bigger one in yourself because you could literally throw off and suffocate the system. But you want a more mechanically engineered, building science focused HVAC professional who can do the right diagnostics on it. If the house has a lot of duct leakage and those duct cracks or seams in the attachment points, and your ducts are in the attic, you're literally getting attic air just being drawn right
Right.
on past those ducts that are leaky. So it's good to have control. It should be a controlled, interconnected system. So HVAC is a big one. Like, where is it located? Is it in a really hot, humid attic, or is it in a nasty crawl space? That's a big thing to know. Um, can you pop open a component of it easily, or pull a filter back and check within? And just, you're looking for heavy duty dust content at that point, and obviously white, gray, green, black growth wherever. So HVAC system to me is just, it's such a huge one. Then go outside and picture where the water falls from and where it goes, and just follow the water and see
Mhm.
where it's potentially beating up. It's the number one killer of buildings. So just, get water down and away from the home. Just move
Mhm.
moisture away. Fight water from the outside. If you're fighting it from the inside, you've already lost. It's already in. It's gonna win.
Yeah,
So yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's something I didn't know when I was buying a house. Our house, everything runs, and again,
Towards
we don't
it.
get a lot
Yeah.
of rain, right? But somebody looked at our house and like, your house is not graded right, but there's like a little man-made arroyo for when the rain comes, so we don't usually get enough that it
Good.
comes down. But my son just bought a house in his house too. Um, they had to revamp the land because everything
Yeah.
was coming in.
Yeah.
To the house, but
Mm.
things you don't know when you're young or you're buying your first home or second home that you don't learn until you deal with water damage. A lot of times, I don't think people know that unless you're in the industry.
Exactly. And that's why I want to get this type of stuff out. Thanks for bringing me on, because this type of knowledge is, everyone should know some of the basics, because if your inspector doesn't know the stuff and you do, they're already filtered out. Go to the next one. You should
Right.
know, they should know more than you. And so if they're inspecting your house, if not, you should inspect it and be confident in it. But yeah, you just follow water and how it all moves. In your case, I am happy you're in a climate that's not getting a ton of rain anyway, so it's not as much of an uphill battle, though you're downhill. But if you're in a mountain, this whole Asheville, North Carolina, Tennessee mountains and all that, I mean, those are brutal. I mean, I was in a California, actually. It was like a San Fran. They're on the side of a mountain, and it was crushing that crawl space for a long time. But it's the only way you can build on the side of a mountain. You got to stand it up. So you have to strategize on how to make that even work. But oh yeah, water wins. It really does. So
I never thought about that, but you're right.
it really does.
Yeah.
There's no controlling it. There's just managing it. And so down and away, yeah, I like little things like plumbing accesses behind plumbing things, to at least just see. Like, what you can't see is like sometimes the biggest problem. If you
Right.
have a basement and it's unfinished, you see a lot more. It's very helpful to see what you're dealing with, because everyone's scared what's behind the walls. Well, sometimes if you don't need the walls, then just, you always be able to see them. You'll be okay.
Right.
Even the ceiling tiles, if you want to, finish it that way, much easier to access, drop them and check up there, stuff like that. Um, what else? There's so much, but dust content's a clue. Humidity levels are clues to things. Yeah. Do you feel worse in the home versus out of the home is kind of the main question I tell health practitioners to just start with. Like, that's a big
Yes.
one. And
Yeah, that's what I tell
yeah.
people too. I mean, I know I didn't feel better out of the home because I was so sick and my home really wasn't that bad. But most people, I find when the levels are higher in their home, like moderate to high levels of exposure, if they get out for a week or even a few days, something shifts, not everything,
Exactly.
but
Just some, yeah,
something shifts that they
yeah.
know, and then they walk back in the house and they
And
don't feel good.
yeah, and the body is the best test in my opinion. From all the
It
tests I've
is.
done, tests throw me all over the place. Like sometimes I'm like, I'm convinced there's a problem here, and the test results come back low. I'm like, well, there's still a problem, and I'm still assigning this because I knew all the other data points. For instance, I was in a house 2 days ago that there was staining on the floor underneath the window. There's a subfloor. They had just pulled the carpet and they wanted me checking that. And took the sample, took a disturbed air sample. So I like kicked all the dust around, and it was not anything crazy and had some aspergillus penicillium, which I would expect. No Stachybotrys in that air sample. But because I had looked thoroughly with a flashlight around the whole perimeter underneath the baseboard, there was a piece of drywall under the baseboard that was black, all covered underneath that same window. So swab that. That's the most accurate sample. Just swab that. That's full of Stachy. But then the disturbed air sample that I did right 5 feet away from the Stachy had only Aspergillus penicillium and a handful of other ones there. So that's also fascinating, right? Like the mold in under the wall is not intentionally jumping out to at that moment jump into the air sample. So you do a
But
combination.
would there have been like mycotoxins from Stacky in the air,
Maybe.
where the mold spores, yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's going to be interesting. The more I learn about the building science side and the testing side of the home, I
Hmm.
just think over the decades, the science will become better and better
Agree.
and better.
Agree. And I hope so. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking so much time. Let me just
Of course.
check
Thank
one more
you.
time if anybody's written. Yeah, no questions.
Cool. Well, this
I'm
recording is going to
surprised,
be
but it'll
fantastic.
be
That's great.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be there. They can ask questions later and I can tag you. But I appreciate you taking an hour out of your very busy schedule helping people with their homes. How can people reach you? And I'll put it in the listing under the video.
Thank you.
Um,
Yeah, thank you so much. Website, melrosemoldsolutions.com. My email is andrew@melrosemoldsolutions.com. And then my YouTube and Instagram are at Melrose Mold Solutions as well. So it's pretty simple across the board. And I'll need to get a Facebook page up and rolling properly soon. I've just hung out on the other two and they've kept me busy enough. But yeah, I hope all the free content can be helpful for people there. We can do more of these interviews and do more Q&As on those different platforms if people have those questions and tell me what type of content to make. We are nationwide, able to travel wherever, but mainly are covering the Carolinas and up and down the East Coast right now. So
how many states did you say you did last year?
21 I
Yeah.
did inspections in. That's way too much.
Yeah, no, it's a lot.
Yeah,
It's a
it
lot,
is. It
but you're
is.
helping a lot of people diagnose and figure out what's going on in your home. And
Mhm.
it's so needed because the body can't get better in a home, that people are being exposed to
That's right.
um, mold and mycotoxins at these higher levels.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much for all you do. And I'm excited for next week to be on my Instagram page with you. So hopefully everyone here can hop on that and just you helping us with the body. I so appreciate all the work you do and great days ahead.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, have a great
Mhm.
day, Andrew,
You
and
too, Heather.
I'll send you the recording so
Perfect.
you
Thank
have it.
you. I will. I will get that out. And I really appreciate the time. Thank you.
Ta-da.
Okay. All righty.
See you later.
All righty.
Bye
Bye bye.
bye.